Imagine you are in a high-stakes negotiation. Your opponent insults your integrity. Your face flushes, your heart hammers against your ribs, and your tongue sharpens for a retort. In that microsecond, you have lost. You didn't just lose the argument. You lost your sovereignty. You gave them the remote control to your nervous system. Most men spend their entire lives reacting. They react to a pretty face, an insult, a notification, or a fear. And they are reactors, biological machines waiting to be triggered. But there is a rare breed of man who exists in the stilled center. To the world, he looks calm. To the initiated, he looks like a predator waiting for the wind to shift. This is the chaos of the unrefined mind. And until you kill the reactor inside you, you will always be a slave to someone else's agenda. Consider the Tokugawa shogunate of Japan, not the stories of flashy swordplay, but the psychological iron that held a nation for 250 years. There were lords who could watch their entire estates burn and not blink. Why? Because they knew that an emotional reaction was a strategic leak. To show anger was to show your hand. To show grief was to show your price. They practiced Fudoshin, the immovable mind. Contrast this with the common man. You think your honesty and wearing your heart on your sleeve is a virtue. It's a vulnerability. It's a roadmap for your enemies. You believe your emotional outbursts make you real, while the powerful use your reality to dismantle your life. They watch you explode, wait for the smoke to clear, and then walk over your ashes to collect the prize. But how do you stop the fire? You don't extinguish it. You starve it of oxygen. You move from the chaos of reaction into the cold sanctuary of emotional sterility. True self-control isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about the death of the reaction. Dark psychology teaches us that humans are hardwired for reciprocity. If I yell at you, your biology demands you yell back. If I flirt with you, your biology demands a flush. When you provide nothing, you create a psychological vacuum. This is the stone face technique. By remaining emotionally sterile, you become a mirror. When people look at you, they don't see your secrets. They only see their own insecurities reflected back. And this is why the most dangerous men in history were often the most soft-spoken. Think of Cardinal Richelieu, the Red Eminence of France. He moved through the court of Louis XIII like a ghost. While others bragged of their conquests and vented their frustrations, Richelieu sat in the silence he created. He knew that information only flows toward the silent. But be warned, staying in the void has a price. When you stop reacting to the world starts to fear you. And fear is a double-edged blade. If you stay silent too long, they will try to break you just to see if you're still human. Are you ready to be the monster they can't understand? Once the reaction is dead, something else begins to grow in its place. It isn't goodness. It is a cold, calculating sense of internal sovereignty. There is a secret high that comes with self-mastery, a dark narcissism. Most people think narcissism is about bragging or seeking attention. In the true dark narcissist needs no outside validation because he has conquered the only opponent that matters, himself. When you can sit in a room full of temptation, be it wealth, sex, or power, and feel absolutely nothing, you develop an aura of natural dominance. People can sense when a man is not for sale. They can sense when a man cannot be tempted. This creates a terrifying realization in others. If I cannot tempt him, I cannot control him. And if I cannot control him, he is my master. Or this is the God complex of the disciplined. You aren't playing by the social rules of being a nice guy. You are playing the game of the sovereign. While your peers are chasing dopamine hits on their phones or losing their minds over a breakup, you are building an empire in the silence of your own mind. You become the predator who doesn't need to growl to show his teeth. The irony is profound. The free man who follows his every whim is actually a prisoner to his biology. The man who enslaves himself through rigid discipline and ruthless self-control is the only one who is truly free. He is the only one who chooses his path, while everyone else is just following the scent of the next meal. To cement this power, we must look at how this internal order manifests as an external fortress. Machiavelli's internal garrison. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't just write about politics. He wrote about the architecture of power. He argued that a prince must build fortresses in the minds of his people. But the dark psychologist knows the first fortress must be built in your own skull. Imagine your mind as a city. Most men have open gates. Every passing thought, every insult from a stranger, every fleeting desire walks right in and loots the treasury. True self-control is the garrison. It is the systematic elimination of insurgents, those weak impulses that tell you to quit when it gets hard, or to speak when you should listen. Consider the Great Fire of London. While the city burned, those who panicked lost everything. Those who maintained their garrison, who methodically moved their assets and calculated the wind, survived and thrived in the aftermath. Life will burn around you. Your relationships will fail. Your business will face ruin, and your health will falter. If your internal garrison is weak, you will burn with the city. If it is strong, you will be the one who buys up the ruins for pennies on the dollar. But there is a final secret, a secret that separates the disciplined worker from the ruthless master. It's not just about saying no to bad habits. It's about a specific type of silence that makes people reveal their darkest secrets to you without you asking a single question. Do you know why the most powerful men never answer a question immediately? Do you know the 3-second rule that can make a CEO sweat in his chair? We are moving from the foundation of the mind into the social shadow. We are using that control to dominate every social interaction you will ever have. We will discuss the stone face in action, the art of strategic denial, and how to make people crave your approval like a drug. The door to the garrison is closing. Are you inside, or are you left in the chaos? The air around you has changed. You are no longer just a man trying to keep his temper. You are an enigma. By mastering the internal garrison, you have created a vacuum, and nature, especially human nature, abhors a vacuum. They will try to fill your silence with their words, their insecurities, and eventually, their submission. This is where self-control stops being a shield and starts becoming a scalpel. Have you ever noticed that in any room, the person with the most power is usually the one moving the least? Weakness is jittery. Weakness explains itself. Weakness seeks rapport. But power? Power is heavy. It has its own gravity. When you exercise the power of the unseen reaction, you aren't just being quiet. You are performing a psychological heist. Most people are desperate to be understood, to be liked, or to be feared. They throw their emotions at you like grappling hooks, searching for a purchase. When you remain a sheer, vertical wall of indifference, those hooks slip. They fall. And in that moment of falling, the other person loses their balance. They begin to overtalk. They reveal their price, their fears, and their secrets, all because they can't handle the weight of your silence. Look at Charles-Maurice de Talleyrand, the French diplomat who survived the Revolution, Napoleon, and the restoration of the monarchy. He was known as the man with the face of stone. It was said that you could kick him from behind while he was talking to you, and his facial expression wouldn't change by a millimeter. Napoleon once screamed at him for 10 minutes, calling him dung in a silk stocking. Talleyrand stood there, eyes calm, face immobile. When Napoleon finally stormed out, Talleyrand turned to the onlookers and simply said, "What a pity that such a great man should have been so ill brought up." By controlling his reaction, Talleyrand didn't just survive Napoleon. He outlasted him. He made the Emperor of Europe look like a petulant child. The man with the limitless power was a slave to his temper, while the servant, with self-control, was the true master of the room. Silence doesn't just repel the weak, it magnetically attracts the curious. This leads us into the most misunderstood application of self-control: seduction and the art of strategic denial. In the world of dark psychology, attention is the ultimate currency. Most men go bankrupt by spending it too quickly. They see something they want: a promotion, a woman, a reputation, and they chase it with a hunger that reeks of desperation. Strategic denial is the act of wanting something while appearing as though you couldn't care less if it vanished tomorrow. When you deny your own impulses to pursue, you create a desire gap. Think about it. Why is a diamond valuable? Not because it's a rock, but because it is difficult to obtain. When you make yourself, your time, your validation, your presence difficult to obtain through sheer self-control, you aren't just being hard to get. You are rewiring the other person's brain to view you as a high-value asset. You are forcing them to qualify to you. The irony is that by doing nothing, you are doing more to win than the man who sends 10 texts or works 20 hours of unpaid overtime. You are the one who controls the pace, because you are the one who is willing to walk away. But there is a danger here. If you deny too much, you become a ghost. If you give too much, you become a doormat. There is a precise razor-thin line where you give them just enough hope to keep them chasing, but never enough to make them feel secure. Do you know how to feed a predator just enough that it follows you, but not enough that it stops being hungry? But self-control isn't just about waiting. It's about the preparation for the kill. This is calculated ruthlessness, the cold decision. There is a massive difference between hot revenge and cold strategy. Hot revenge is impulsive. It's the man who gets insulted at a bar and starts a fight, only to end up in a cell. That isn't ruthlessness. That's a tantrum. True ruthlessness requires the highest level of self-control because it requires you to wait. The cold decision is the ability to sustain a grudge without letting it cloud your judgment. It is the ability to smile at your enemy, shake their hand, and even help them succeed, all while you are methodically removing the supports from under their house. You don't strike when you are angry. You strike when they are vulnerable. This is the patience of the spider. The spider doesn't chase the fly, and the spider builds the web, sits in the center, and exercises total self-control until the vibrations tell him the moment is perfect. By the time the fly realizes it's in danger, the spider has already won. The irony. The fly thought the spider was passive or lazy. In reality, the spider was the only one in the room with a plan. What if you could use your self-control to make people think you've lost it? When this is the most advanced level of the social shadow, weaponizing vulnerability via control. The ultimate move in the Machiavellian playbook is using your mastery of self to fake a lack of it. This is the feigned weakness. When you have a reputation for being unshakable, a sudden, accidental slip of emotion can be used to bait your enemies into overextending themselves. Imagine a poker player who has been a rock for 3 hours, never blinking. Suddenly, he starts acting agitated, and betting recklessly, and venting about his bad luck. The table thinks he's tilted. They smell blood. They go all in against him, thinking they're exploiting his weakness. But it was a simulation. He controlled the out-of-control performance to lure them into a trap they can't escape. This is the pinnacle of the dark aura. You are so in control of your psyche that you can use vulnerability as a lure. You are playing a character in a movie that you are also directing. But we are only halfway through the dark forest. You've learned to control the mind, and you've learned to manipulate the room. But there is a final stage, a transformation that changes your very biology. People think an aura is something mystical. It's not. It's a physical frequency. Have you ever wondered why some men walk into a room and the air seems to get colder? Why people move out of their way without being asked? In the next, we will discuss the executioner's discipline and how to achieve the eternal throne, a state of power so absolute that you no longer have to do anything to dominate. The dominance simply is. Are you ready to stop being a player in the game and start being the one who owns the board? The transformation is almost complete, but the most dangerous lesson is yet to come. The transformation is almost complete. You have fortified your internal garrison and mastered the social shadows. But there is a final stage, a metamorphosis where self-control stops being something you do and becomes something you are. In this final chapter, we move beyond the tactics. We are stepping into the realm of the metaphysical. We are crafting the dark aura. And this is the physical and psychological frequency that signals to the world that you are no longer a participant in their games. You are the architect of the reality they inhabit. Have you ever walked into a room and felt a sudden, inexplicable shift in the atmosphere? No one spoke, no one moved, yet the air felt heavy, almost electric. You were sensing a frequency. Most men emit a frequency of static, anxious energy, the need for approval, the flickering lights of 1,000 minor desires. But the man of the dark aura emits a low, steady hum. It is the frequency of fearlessness. This isn't about alpha posturing or loud barking. It is the frequency of fearlessness found in the stillness of your eyes and the deliberate nature of your breath. When your self-control is absolute, your nervous system stops broadcasting prey signals. You no longer blink when challenged. You no longer fidget when ignored. The world tries to find itself. You have already decided who you are. And that certainty acts as a gravitational pull that drags everyone else into your orbit. Consider Catherine de' Medici, the Black Queen of France. After the death of her husband, she didn't just rule, she haunted the court. She traded her colorful gowns for a lifetime of black mourning silk. She didn't need to shout orders. Her presence was so saturated with self-control and hidden intent that ambassadors would tremble before she even spoke a word. She moved with a glacial slowness, a physical manifestation of her internal iron. While the nobles around her squabbled and reacted to every rumor, Catherine remained the unmoved center. She understood the ultimate secret. He who is most still controls the movement of all others. People thought she was mourning, but the irony was that she was weaponizing her grief into an aura of untouchable authority. Presence is the bait. Execution is the hook. To maintain the aura, you must possess what we call the executioner's discipline. The dark aura is brittle if it isn't backed by the capacity for absolute follow-through. Most people have good intentions or temporary bursts of discipline. They start a diet, a business, or a grudge, and then they let it fizzle out when it gets uncomfortable. This is a leak in their aura. The executioner's discipline is the psychological trait of finishing what you start with a cold, mechanical efficiency. Is when you decide to remove someone from your life, they are gone. No second chances, no emotional lingering. When you decide to acquire a skill, you grind until you are the master. You don't do it for self-improvement. You do it to increase your lethality in the social marketplace. Think of the ghost of the battlefield, Miyamoto Musashi. He didn't just practice swordplay. He practiced the rhythm of the kill. He understood that hesitation is just another word for a lack of self-control. If you decide to strike, you strike. If you decide to wait, you wait. There is no middle ground of trying. The irony of the executioner is that he appears the most free because he is the most bound to his own word. His will is a law of nature. Once your actions match your aura, your old morality will begin to feel like a suit of clothes that no longer fits. You are moving beyond morality. This is the stage where you stop asking for permission. True dark psychology eventually leads to a crossroads. You can either be a highly disciplined servant or a sovereign individual. The masses are controlled by a complex web of social programming, guilt, shame, fairness, and the desire to be a good person. The sovereign individual views these concepts as tools, not truths. You exercise self-control, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it serves your long-term dominance. This is the Nietzschean Übermensch, viewed through a Machiavellian lens. You have detached yourself from the herd. The dramatic irony here is that the people who call you cold or ruthless are the very ones who will eventually come to you for leadership. They hate your lack of chains, yet they are desperate for someone who isn't bound by the same fears they are. You become their necessary evil. You are the one who can make the decisions they are too weak to make, and because of that, you will always hold the eternal throne. The final lesson is the hardest: how to stay there. Power is not a destination. It is a high-maintenance engine. The eternal throne is the daily ritual of self-reinvention. The dark aura requires you to never become comfortable. Comfort is the death of control. The elite, the top 0.1% of thinkers and power players, live in a state of active paranoia. They use their self-control to constantly audit their own lives for weaknesses. When they prune their friendships, they challenge their own biases, and they never ever believe their own press. They know that the moment they think they have arrived, they have already begun to fall. Your rituals are your armor. Whether it is the cold plunge, the silent meditation, or the late-night study of your enemies, these aren't habits. They are the ceremonies of a king in an occupied territory. You are the king, and the territory is the world. We have come full circle. You started as a reactor, a victim of your own biology and the world's whims. You learned to build a garrison, to move in the shadows of social dynamics, and finally, to radiate an aura that makes the world bend to your will. But here is the final, most haunting hook. The dark aura isn't a mask you can take off. Once you see the world as a game of psychological leverage, you can never go back to being normal. You will see the strings on every puppet. You will see the fear behind every smile. You are now a stranger in a room full of people who think they are free. Was it worth it? To trade the comfort of the good man for the cold sovereignty of the master? If you are still watching, if you are still reading, we both know the answer. You didn't choose this path. You were built for it. The video ends here. But your reign is just beginning. Stay disciplined, stay ruthless, stay silent.